I'm who you want me to be, so I'm lying my way from you. No turning back now. I wanna be pushed aside.
So, as many people have probably noticed, is that my gym journey has been fairly long. My gym journey is coming up to 3.5 years, and I've definitely gone through a lot of changes in particular, because of course you start the gym just thinking, I want to be, fit and healthy, and then you proceed to lift weights and then get injured several times. So, what a change of events. But anyway, going over my 3.5 years, many things I would reflect on. But, I encourage a lot of people to go to the gym, in particular to get healthy, because I'll admit, I would say I'm somewhat healthier than what I would be, say, if I didn't do the gym. Probably a lot. But, when I think about, how the gym has affected me, really, is more mental than physical, because, of course, I'll put up an image of me. I'm pretty sure many of my followers have seen, my transformation videos and all that kind of stuff. They're probably one of my more popular videos, but essentially, I used to be very insecure about my own body, and of course, I used to be extremely skinny and all this kind of stuff. And although from my own experience, it hasn't really changed anything when it comes to, attracting women whatsoever, because, a lot of guys think, I'll get a good body and I'll get women. No, it didn't really work like that, if I'm being honest. But essentially, all that hard work and all that, me being able to lift certain weights that people can't, it builds that confidence that has made me happier. Because, it takes a while, of course, because, I had like a stage like in a year where I was just like very depressed and all this kind of stuff. And, even before I was very depressed. And I'd definitely say without the gym, I would definitely be in more a mental crisis, because I'm not particularly social, in my personal opinion. And, my friends are at the gym, and that's pretty much it. I go to work, I go to the gym, it's essentially that kind of cycle, because I don't go to university because I see it as a waste of time. But essentially, I'm very glad I joined the gym. And if you are currently watching this and you do not go to the gym, I highly encourage you to start your gym journey, because you'll meet a lot of good people along the way. Although some may be dickheads, some maybe not. It's just life, because in life you'll find there are lots of dickheads and then there's lots of good people. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. And and also you never know, you might find a sport that you really like, because of course I've gone through my aesthetic phase and now it's kind of like I'm in my strength phase, really, because I wouldn't say I heavily go on to, be like all these aesthetic people, because I know in myself, I don't really have the most aesthetic physique, blah, blah, blah. I'd say, my strength and physique are par and par right now. They're decent, a bit better than average. And, that's just the way it is. And hopefully I get far in both, that's the main goal. But when it comes to, physiques and everything, I shouldn't be comparing myself to people who are currently on drugs or, anything of the sort. Because, yet again, I could compare myself to David Lade. He's way better looking, taller, and, got a better physique. But, yeah, again, I'm only doing things that I'm in control of, and I'm doing my best. I'm growing out my hair, oddly enough, and people like it weirdly. But, I'm doing little things to make me happier. And that's the truth of life. You need to make yourself happy, because no one will ever do that for you other than you. So, but anyway, less of me being more deep than usual, because I thought I've been more robotic in terms of what I've been talking about, just the general subject. But in my 3.5 years, I've had ups and downs, I've had stages of all this kind of stuff. But, the gym has really been a very important part of my life, and I do want to spread awareness of going to the gym, especially when you're mentally not there, because you're either depressed, you think about not being here, all that kind of stuff. I encourage you to go to the gym. I don't care how, depressed you are and all this kind of stuff. If you go to the gym, eventually you will be happier. Trust me. I used to be at rock bottom, and I mean rock bottom. And sometimes I can be like that now, but it's less often. I do have the odd anger issue, but, anger issue or being depressed and having anger issue, it's kind of like that. But I'd definitely say I'm happier. But again, I'm not fully happy because, I want to achieve certain things. And I'm just striving for more, really, I guess. But anyway, we'll be just weighing ourselves, because I now have a time and day that I will be doing my competition. I'll be doing it on the 14th of June on a Sunday. So essentially all good. But when it comes to weigh-ins, it will be at like 1:30. It currently is past 1:30, but to better accurately depict my weight on the day would be to, weigh myself now kind of thing later in the day, then, be in the morning, because morning weight doesn't mean shit if my weigh-ins are like 1:30. So, but also there's a guy who who's competing at this certain event, and he's a world record holder. Yeah. If I was in 105, I would be screwed. Yeah. He would have won the overall. And he's not even going all out, probably. He just casually does it. But anyway, we're going to be looking at the weight and then getting straight into the gym. We'll go there now. So I'll just weigh myself, think this camera may weigh a bit more, just bear in mind. Oh, yeah, it did weigh me. I'm currently 95. You probably can't see that very good, but I have just eaten, but it was showing me 94 earlier when I just ate, so it's not too bad, and everything. But I will be keeping you up to date with the weights, so and it will be at 1:30 because I forgot and I ate beforehand. But anyway, let's get into the gym. So we'll be starting off the workout with basically a tempo no leg drive bench press. So essentially, because of recent events and me not being able to bench 140 for 3, and I'm feeling like it's a more upper body issue, I have decided to essentially do tempos without any leg drive. So of course it'll be a lot harder, especially because I'm a person who relies heavily on their legs in a bench press to actually be strong. It'll just give me that upper body strength that I really need, especially in those like final push moments. So I feel like adding these in is quite necessary, especially coming up to my competition and everything. But I'm not going too heavy, of course, feeling it out,
I did 105 for 1, and then I'm doing 100 for 5 reps. So yeah, it was all right. But yeah, moving on to incline press. This certainly was interesting. Yeah, again, still stuck at 100 kilos, which I might have to, decrease the weight a bit. So like go to 95 next time to try and like see if I can progressively overload and stuff like that, because of course we need to progressively overload. Now, onto the clip of the day where in this set, I proceed to not even get the weight up after, I believe, 4 to 5 reps. On the last rep, it just didn't go up, and I didn't have a spotter. So what do you do when you don't have a spotter? You just simply try and get up as much as you can, but you end up rolling it off yourself, and yeah. Thank God I didn't hurt myself there, because that would have been painful. But anyway, I moved on to some cable flies, of course, because, it didn't damage me too much. I just rolled it off and just tensed my abs so aggressively hard that I think, I must have stimulated them in some way because of how hard I was tensing them, just so the bar wouldn't crush my organs. But anyway, cable flies, mainly for hypertrophy reasons, but also they do help with strength, oddly enough, because like I say in lats, you need a movement that involves your arms in the movement, so like a lat pull down and an incline press, and then you should have like where the muscle is solely working, which is the whole thing here. So like this is the lat pullover of chest, it's the chest fly, which pretty much is, I'd say, 95% chest. So yeah, I just do this to provide a bit more stimulation, but also, it's more like higher reps, that kind of thing, lower weight. But yeah, still gotta train hard, so gotta do the drop sets in this. For those who are new, I'm a big fan of drop sets. I feel like it's built my physique as far as it's gotten. And drop sets just allow you to go that bit further than you usually would, because once you've done a set, I feel like you still can get a bit more out if you just lower the weight a bit more. Hence why I always, turn to doing a drop set, even with shoulders here. So like I'm doing cable raises, like I usually do. I do a weight for 2 sets, which I did on cable flies, but unfortunately one of the things disappeared, so unfortunately I can't show you that. But essentially, usually with a lot of my sets, it's like 3 sets, 2 of the sets being one weight and then it being a drop set for the end set. And I feel like that just allows, for you to push that final, set to proper failure, because of course I'm going to failure on these sets. So like, here I'm going to failure. I can't do any more, lateral raises. But as soon as I go into that drop set, I'm able to do a bit more reps, because, I'm lowering the weight ever so slightly down and down and down. And that just allows me to go that, 1% further, because, when it comes to muscle and, hypertrophy training, you still need to push as far as you can, because your body will go, well, I've already done this way before. You need to push me. So, but yeah, it's all due to genetics sometimes, that how your body responds. Some people, I tend to believe people respond in different ways, and it's particularly to not only their genetics but also their personality. I'm more of a quick, fast twitch muscle fiber guy, so I'm like more explosive because of course I do my powerlifting, and you know I do MMA on the side, which I won't show you because I get beaten to shit. But I'm more of a fast twitch person. I'm not a, you know, excessive amounts of reps kind of guy. I'm more of a, you know, I will do it as heavy as I can for a multitude of reps. And I feel like that has built more muscle than, you know, doing the whole, oh, you need to do 12 reps. Honestly, rep ranges you shouldn't really give a shit about, because here I'm doing like, you know, tricep extensions. I'm not really counting how many I'm doing. I'm just making sure my weaker side is doing the exact same amount. But if, say, I do like 8 reps on one side, I have to do it on the other side. But that's the only type of counting I really do, if it's like, you know, one of these. But if it's just like, you know, cable flies or, you know, crossbody extensions, so like the double cable version of this, I don't really care how many reps I get, as long as it's heavy enough and, you know, I know it's within probably like 10 to 12 range or 8 reps, you know, that kind of rep range. I don't really care, because, you know, I'm pushing myself as far as I can here. And that's all I can really do. Because, you know, rep ranges can sometimes just be very limiting, in my opinion. So, like, I understand for strength basis, you would go with a rep range, say 5 or 1 or 3 or 2. You know, those kinds of rep ranges. But when it comes to more hypertrophy, you know, training, you shouldn't really give a shit about a rep range, because all rep ranges kind of build muscle if you think about it. But in particular, for me, you know, I'm more of a heavy bound guy. Therefore, you know, I take longer rests, but also, you know, I go as hard as I possibly can. But once I've finished with the, you know, lateral delt of the tricep, I go into tricep pushdowns, which allow me to get the medial and, you know, long head more effectively. And many people say, you know, you don't need many tricep exercises, which is very true. You know, my triceps are still growing, even though I've took skull crushers out. Which skull crushers were mainly a strength-based movement to increase my bench, which after getting up to like 60 kilos, I didn't really notice an equivalence of, you know, my skull crush going up, but my bench going up. It didn't really flow that well. So essentially what I did is I just went, okay, I can't really do this by myself either. So I'm just gonna, you know, go with, you know, some extensions and push downs. I might add dips in after my whole competition thing, because I've kind of set in stone what I'm gonna do. You know, I'm focusing on, you know, leg driveless bench press with a tempo, but of course, you know, that can only get me so far, which, you know, dips might allow me to have more arm strength in particular, because, you know, I'm a close grip bench presser, because it's more comfortable for me. I hate wide grip bench press. It makes me feel weird. But it's all due to preference. I'm a conventional, you know, deadlifter, but I'm also a sumo squatter. So it's swings and roundabouts, people. You know, you just got to find your, you know, your kind of stance, because I have long femurs, which is why I go into a sumo stance, but also because I have long femurs and, you know, I'd say longish arms, I suppose. Like, it's very medium. I'd say medium-sized arms. So, like, how long they are. I'm more of a conventional puller, because one, I feel more secure, but also, you know, it feels way better. But anyway, look at this physique. Yeah, shoulders are pretty good, you know. Triceps are still building, of course, you know. They're still protruding outwards, which is a good sign. But anyway, on to a leg day, which this one was oddly very good, you know. I started off with a paused single of 175. I do need to go a bit lower than that, I think, with my you know, reps and stuff. But when I went down to 155, I definitely went deep. So yeah, I made sure I got depth with those. But depth is getting better. It used to be chronically shit. It used to be a half rep, so I'd take it as a win if this is my like shittest depth. But when I did my 220 PR for 3 reps, it was quite good depth. So, you know, I'm very happy with how I've progressed with squats. It's just need deadlifts to sort themselves out, which yeah, I now have stuff to counteract, you know, my back injuries and all that kind of stuff. I have stretches, I have exercises to do, and yeah, hopefully the deadlift increases by a lot. So yeah, we'll have to see. But anyway, stiff leg deadlifts, they felt pretty good this day, you know, and this was before going to my physio. I mean, we're doing pretty well. I don't usually feel on the deadlifts, I usually feel very, like, you know, bloated and then inherently sick. So on this day I didn't feel that way, so, you know, I was very happy with the result, and it's very rare that I do not have that. So sometimes I just think it's stress, you know, from you know, thinking I'm gonna break my back or something. But you know, your body's very unique. It tends to make up situations, and you know, tends to react in certain ways, which is also why sometimes the body can be a bit of a prick. But anyway, going on to some quadricep extensions. Yes, that's the whole name of the quad. Quadricep, meaning for muscle. The quadricep has the extender muscles, of course, in the quad to, you know, extend the knee, and, you know, making them bigger, of course, leads to better aesthetics in the legs, which I don't have particularly big legs. I will put it out there, I do have the chicken leg syndrome of how my legs are very strong in comparison to what they look like. Like, you've seen me squat, I look like, you know, a turkey. You know, I have a big upper body, but, you know, my legs do not match. And, yeah. Sometimes I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, what the fuck am I looking at? In terms of, you know, my leg proportion to my upper body. Which I trained fucking hard. After this day, I was, you know, hurting for a very long time. After this leg day, I drive a manual, by the way, because I live in Britain and manuals are very common. And of course, you know, you have to, you know, pass with a manual in this country. Otherwise, you are not a man, you're a pussy. But trying to drive a manual with very, very sore post leg day legs is a pain in the ass, because I had to hold my foot down with my hand so my clutch would go all the way in and not kill itself while I'm at traffic lights trying to go home, which kind of shows how hard I went this session, because usually well, after, you know, 2 weeks of being ill, technically, and feeling like utter crap for some reason, inherently, I didn't do much on legs. You know, I pulled my back on the first week, and then I got ill the next week, and now I'm right as rain. But essentially, it's very good to, when I know I've done, good on legs, it always feels better knowing I've done it that way, because, I'm like, finally, a feeling that I, can finally feel. But usually I'd be doing a, Smith machine Bulgarian split squat, but the Smith machine was being, taken by broccoli heads and old people. So I just went to the leg press because no one was training legs, which, just shows a lot of, character about the men who go to my gym. They tend to skip leg day, and you can tell because there's literally no mass on those legs. They make my legs look big, and that's saying something, which you can see here. My legs are not massive. Simple put. And these motherfuckers, their legs are like sticks. It's like, come on, bro. You need to upscale your physique by, training some legs. But they never do. So, imagine training with me, because you can see on my face, I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying this leg session. I look like I love myself way too much. Particularly on leg press, because with leg press, I do not like it. Other than, when I'm doing what right now. I'm doing a single leg, double leg technique, which it's kind of like a drop set, really, when I, put both of my legs on. But also, it allows me to go deeper because I can put my body to the side and my leg can go past my shoulder. Because if I were to just go straight down, all the way down with two legs, I kind of do hit my shoulders. I'm not saying, oh yeah, because I'm fucking huge. It's just purely because, I'm trying to get as much range of motion as possible and my body's in the way, And if anything, my stomach's getting in the way. And I won't even say my stomach protrudes at all, It's fairly locked in, but my body just gets in the way. Hence why I prefer like a hack squat, really. And, of course, the Bulgarian split squat. Just purely because I can go deeper. But yeah, I had to settle with, leg press. But to end off the leg day, going on to adductors and hamstrings, hamstring curl, the reason I do these last is because not only is the hamstring curl a bit shit, but adductors, I have fairly strong adductors anyway, and fairly, present adductors. You can see them quite a bit. But with hamstrings, I would say I'm pretty good with them. They're not like chronically small, and I'm just trying to fill out my legs, which of course stimulating them in this way, where I've done everything on the quad, and then going on to this, then it's just bash these out and try and stimulate as much as possible, because on the adductor machine, which we're on right now, I'm full stacking this. I've tried everything to, make it harder, but it's a pain in the ass. Especially when it only goes up to a certain, number, which it's fairly low. It's like 125 kilo with a bit of extra resistance that mode it has, but not good for gains, especially if you want to grow your adductors and make your legs look huge. But with hamstrings it was basically the same thing, because with adductors I'm not really gonna do a drop set on those, because I'm already strong enough to do the full stack anyway, so it is what it is. But with hamstrings, I did like one set and then a drop set because I needed to get home. Can't remember why, but you know, I just needed to get home. So yeah, and I was certainly not walking properly. After this session, I was basically, because my gym is on the first floor, and then you have the ground floor. I have to go down quite a few stairs, which yeah, I basically have to fall down while holding the railing when you know, I've just like finished my leg day where I'm like, oh shit, I have to go downstairs now. So well, if you're going through those sorts of like, you know, things of help trying to stop yourself from falling after a leg day, then you've done something right, is what I like to say. But in particular, we'll be going on to, you know, pull day, which I've kept tempos on pull day. So of course you have my primary bench, you have my tempo 0 leg drive day, and then you have of course regular tempos because I still need to work on form. You know, just try and drill it in, which is the whole reason of tempos. It drills in that form, and you know, you get to, you know, practice everything, as well as it, you know, helping with, you know, resistance training. I was joined by the Rat Man from Harry Potter, aka Lorax, aka Sonic the Hedgehog. He was complaining about his I don't know, his nipple hurting or something, or his armpit. I can't really remember because he used deodorant for the first time in his life, and you know, it burnt him. I'm surprised he's not Indian, and for all that out there, that's a joke, so please take it with light intentions. But yeah, he was complaining that he got a burn from a deodorant bottle, so it's his own dumbass fault. But certainly on lat pull downs, he was complaining a lot, to the point where once I get down to the drops, he just like leaves because he needs his mum to kiss him better, and you know, because of course his mother will solve his problem by kissing his armpit for some reason. But yeah, lat pull downs, very similar to a lot of my exercises. I have a drop set and everything, so need to increase the intensity, which I was going down from 100 anyway. So first set was like 110, second set 100, and then 100 on the drop set, and just going down by like 20, you know, because, and here I'm just calling him a pussy because he was complaining that it's like just a red burn. It's not a blistering burn, which is very weird. Like, I'd get it if it was blistering, but you know, he's just being a big pussy, which you can see his face here. I just lost 2 viewers because he's distracting my fan base with his ugly face. Disgusting behaviour, you know. Need to ban him from my channel. Disgrace. What a tiny little 5'0" frame. Embarrassing. But anyway, less about the dwarf. We're going on to lat pullovers, you know, because we want some fucking wings, because wings also help with bench press. Because for those of you who do not know, you know, your back does get involved in a bench press, and if you do it wrong enough, it's always, any exercise you can think of can use your spine and get a herniated disc. It's up to you if you want to go down that route, but essentially with your back muscles, they are the supporting muscles of your chest. So like when you're pressing something, it just enables you to, set up and push forward because they're pulling them, because essentially they're stretching to, for your chest to contract. So they do get involved quite heavily. So it's initially, a very good thing to get some strong lats and some strong traps, because, it just helps with the strength of the bench press, but also, you don't want to look like you're all arms, no torso kind of motherfucker, which I've seen quite frequently. But with traps, doing a cable row, of course, because, why not? But with cable rows, I'm merely trying to, target more of my lower trap, my lower region, like middle, lower region, which, of course, I think my traps are fine. My higher traps, they're okay. It's just like making them a bit thicker is a bit of a issue that I tend to find, because I think I heavily shrug during my, rowing and all that kind of stuff. So essentially what I've decided to do, I've just tried to use my brain more, which oddly enough, weight training in a new study that I've found helps with brain patterns and your intelligence. It's very weird. For some reason, I feel like I've gotten dumber since going to the gym. But, it somehow helps with cognitive function and, recognizing patterns, which I wouldn't say I'm thick as pig shit, but, sometimes I have my moments of, Jesus Christ, did I just say that? And, me looking dumb as anything. But anyway, going on to hammer preacher curls. So, a unique, amenity, I don't know if I said that correctly, to the, original preacher curl, because, my forearms suck and they need to grow. And I found this was very good, very stimulating to the brachialis muscle, which is essentially the muscle that goes from like your bicep region to your forearm. It's that connector muscle. And it was definitely burning, and my biceps were burning too. So, which I went into incline curls, which were modified with a hammer, movement, because the difference between your palm being facing up or your palm facing to the side is just how your biomechanics react to it. So like, of course, having it in a hammer, configuration just allows it to use the brachialis more, because it's more in line with those muscles. And it's just how your biomechanics work, really, is how I would often explain it, because if I go so scientific and rubbish, it just becomes more of a LARP fest, and people don't understand. So of course, I'm being very careful. I'm using my own arm as a spotter, hence why I do single arm preacher curl, because I feel like it's way better, because I can push myself without anyone being there. If I had a skull crusher that I would be able to do the same thing, I would do skull crushers. But with skull crushers, I can only rely on, another person to help me. But on here, I can rely on myself, which, hence why I think it's one of the best bicep exercises, a single arm, preach curl, because they've blown up my arms. They've actually, done a lot for my arms, and, I feel like they're one of the best bicep exercises ever, which, hopefully they are able to, help with increasing my forearm volume because my forearms are still shit. So yeah, just those slight little changes might help me not look like look shit essentially. But once my forearms get to a decent size anyway, I'll focus more on my biceps and then, because of course I'm still focusing on my triceps because triceps take up 2/3 of your overall upper arm. So it's very important you train your triceps for aesthetic reasons, but also, your functional reasons. So yeah, and then here's the incline curls that I was on about, of course, because I wanted to target a bit more my brachialis as well. But then afterwards, I moved on to some forearm curls, which involves the big meaty bit on your forearm. So yeah, it helps with grip and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. But anyway, less of me larping and yapping. We're gonna end it there for the voiceover. Thank you for really watching, because 3.5 years of my life have been dedicated to the gym, and I like sharing how that progress has really done for me and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, stay tuned for the journey, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Maybe you need to send him to me. I'll train him for a bit.
No, it's home.
Oh wow.
Almost home. What is it? It keeps disappearing. Where the fuck are you from? Yeah, it's home, I think. Should be later.
Yeah. I'll go at different times if you're just gonna argue and all that. I'd say.
Well, I usually want to, but then you like it.
Because sometimes, you just need to let them go, be themselves for a bit. And if they don't change, then so be it.